Got a couple extras.
Thank you. So the company GTAC was interested in leasing some property adjacent to the ore body, basically for the purpose of some place to put the earth when they start digging the hole. You can see on the white sheet there's 6 different sections, all of I think all or most of 3 of them, and then or 4 of them, and then parts of another 2 sections. Comes out to 3,331 acres. Seems like a lot of property. It's less than 2% of the county forest. The reason for the blocking the way they picked it was basically just because it was a nice, easy 6 sections of land with square corners for the lease agreement. That's the only reason for the acreage. In some of the preliminary talks I've had with the guys, with the mining company, the impact, which they at this point have no idea what that would be, but it could be as little as 20% or maybe 40% or somewhere in that neighborhood. They wouldn't impact 3,331 acres of county forest. They're looking at some ridge lines. If you look at the map, the brown square is the lease area, and you can see that the east side of it has the Tylor Forks River, and of course a lot of low areas in there. I think what they were looking at was kind of a ridge line between the Tylor Forks and Bullgus Creek, and then another ridge line west of Bullgus Creek to place material when you start digging the hole. So the impact actually wouldn't be anywhere near the 3,000 acres that's being leased. Now, the option that they have, which they paid $20,000 to have the option to lease this property, just gives them the option. If they were to act on that, the land would have to be withdrawn from county forest, which would require filling out an application that goes to the DNR and kind of goes back and forth, well, goes to the county board and then to the DNR and then gets reviewed, and there would be kind of a lengthy process there, which would require an environmental impact statement for a withdrawal of this size. So that would coincide with the mining permit. It would be the same environmental impact statement. So all of that would be done together. So then once the land is withdrawn, the agreement, the way it was written for the lease, is what I've got here on this white sheet to have. And we kept it pretty simple. I basically took, you can see I've got primary timber types and acres. I just took the timber types that were out there off of our inventory, and we have 2,090 acres of northern hardwood, and we on average enter northern hardwood every 20 years. So if you look below, there's an equation. The northern hardwood acres divided by 20. And then we just took all the other acres, whether it's aspen or brush, swamp, muskeg, whatever it was, and we said we'd enter that every 50 years, and so we divide all other acres by 50. And that gets multiplied by the 5-year average of cut stumpage off the county forest, which is currently, I think I've got it in here somewhere, $668.60. And that was the other year when I plugged these numbers, so now it would be a little different, but we do a 5-year rolling average, and I think we agreed to adjust that every 5 years, whether it goes up or down. So you multiply by the 5-year average of cut stumpage times 110, and the 10% was added on as a means of paying for the lost recreational value on that 3,000 acres of property. So that's the equation. It comes out, if we were, when this option was signed, if we were to start the lease at that point, it would have been to the tune of $95,000 a year to lease that 3,300 acres. The Iron County would retain the timber rights, so whatever was not impacted, whether it was 50% of the property or whatever, we would continue to manage as forest, just like we do now. Wherever they were going to put buildings or pile material or whatever the case may be, we would of course be able to sell that stumpage prior to them doing that. And if we didn't, it is actually in the lease that they would have to pay a fair market value, which would be based on the 5-year average of single sales outcomes. In my mind, from a forestry standpoint, it was a very fair lease agreement. I think it worked out pretty good. And like I said, oddly enough, I haven't had a whole lot of people. There's only been 2 or 3 really that have come into my office or called that have been curious about this. And I was kind of surprised because most people, hear of leasing 3,300 acres to somebody. Hey, that's a big chunk of property. Well, like I said, it is about 1.8% of the county forest. We do have 174,000 acres in total. The other thing I had, these are been traveling around the woods a little bit. Just grab them and see. I don't know if anybody's seen any of these maps or not, but I think this one is. That's the Bad River watershed. Yep. So, kind of gives you a scope of what we've got. The ore body in the phase 1, and then the county lease blocking right there, directly south of it. We've got a couple of things tagged on there, up and whatnot. This one's ore is what we're talking about, but then this one's kind of basically county forest. Everything in green is county forest land. And this is the Bulgus block that they would like to lease from us. So it gives an idea of where that fits into the bigger picture of the county forest. So that's what I know about the lease. Is there questions about it?
Well, when I was reading the lease, I see there's a right to designate additional acres, surface property. Do you have any clues if they were going to ask for more land to rent, which way that would go? I mean, would it be north of that site, south?
I don't know. No, and I think that was in there. Once again, they picked this blocking as a big area, thinking that this would cover everything they need.
Okay.
And the testing that they were doing on the county land was to see how much can that property physically hold? What can you pile on top of it without it going, squirting out, basically? What's the load-bearing capabilities of that land? So I think that was, and I know I talked to them about it, and I'm trying to think back. I think that was just a clause in there to kind of help out if they needed to move in a different direction in one way or another. They had a means to do that.
Okay.
If memory serves me right.
Now you mentioned that the entire acreage is 3,750, or is it? I thought you said 3,331.
3,331.
And you mentioned 20 to 40% of that would be impacted.
We don't know, but it would be a percentage. It wouldn't be the whole thing.
And that's because of avoidance of wetlands, I'm assuming?
A lot of it would be avoidance of wetlands. Yeah.
You mentioned there needs to be an E.I.S. for withdrawal from the forest crop program.
Correct.
Is that for the private property or for the county lands?
That would be for the county lands.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who does that? The DNR?
Yeah, the DNR. The withdrawals I've done so far for the county forest, I have not had to deal with that at all. The smaller withdrawals haven't required that, but something this size would. So.
Then, like the mining company, do you have to do an environmental impact report first before they do?
I don't think so. I think this is all on the DNR.
Do you have any idea?
I'm sure there'll be a lot of things I will have to
do you have any idea how much money the town of Anderson stands to gain from when that's taken out of forest crop? And does the county get any reimbursement when that's pulled from forest crop?
Yeah, when it's pulled from forest crop, I've got those numbers in my office. I just found them out recently. $300,000 roughly, I think is what it is.
For the county?
80% of that goes to the town of Anderson and 20% goes to the county. That I do know. But you take the tax rate over the period of years it's been in Forest Croft and multiply it out basically, so they pay full taxes on it. And I think it's been in Forest Croft since '99 or something.
I see on the lease option that it was scheduled to expire on the 26th of January. Has it been renewed?
Yes,
Okay.
Friday,
Friday?
25th.
What is renewed?
26th. Okay. Other questions you guys about the agreement for the option?
I understand is that if they lease it and they cut the timber, we get the timber too, plus we get paid for it?
Right, we'll continue to get, the way the lease agreement's built, you know, we get 110% of the timber value every year,
And plus we
no
get
matter
the
what we
timber.
do out there.
Okay.
Plus, we get paid for anything that's cut, and we continue to manage what isn't cut.
And we get the money for the rental.
And we get the rental money, right.
So you're almost looking at double that rental value every year.
Yeah, essentially, you would be.
Question? The other reason we wanted to hear Joe is we were thinking a lot about reclamation.
Right.
We want to have a plan before a shovel even hits the ground.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing to be thinking about right through the entire process, I would think.
We understand from Ms. Copley that reclamation will be concurrent, so they'll be doing it as they go. So we're looking for ideas. We're hoping to go to Minnesota, get some more ideas there. We've been in Michigan already, see what options are available. So could you give us some ideas on what could happen with that land?
Well, you know, just, again, talking with the GTAC guys, just kind of brainstorming one day. I don't even know how it came up, but we were talking about some of the things that could happen with the county land, and they, at that time, said they could build the highest point in Wisconsin if they wanted to. So, you know, I really think when it comes to reclamation, just about anything could be done. Obviously, the contours are going to change some. Elevations are going to... Contours may not change. Elevations will change. And there's going to be more earth on the county property than there was before, but that can be shaped in any number of ways within, you know, the environmental constraints of the wetlands and what the soils can hold and that kind of stuff. So, you know, there's all kinds of things. It could be returned to natural forest the way it is right now. You could build an ATV park, ski hill, lots of different things on that property. I know when you look at some of the reclamation that's been done in Minnesota, several years ago I had the chance to go to Gilbert and look at that ATV and off-road park that they've got there. I don't know if you guys have been there yet or not. That's pretty interesting. I know down around Crosby and Ironton, a lot of the lakes that they have there and bike paths is more of a natural area and more of a silent sport type of place. You know, it's just a chain of lakes. You don't even really know that it's an iron mine. That's pretty nice. So there's a lot of different things that can be done with reclamation. And these mines over there were mines that had no reclamation plan. I think if we're up front and thinking about this right away and coming up with a plan, we can really have something really nice when it's all said and done.
From a forestry standpoint, would you support the return of northern hardwoods, or would you rather see other possible?
Well, I love northern hardwood stands. We've got 2,000 acres of really nice northern hardwood stands in Bogas. From a forestry standpoint, in the lake states, you can't beat that. But I think what needs to happen is to have a group of citizens talk about what we want there when it's all said and done, and go that route.
This is going to be a temporary stockpile. Is any of this dirt that they're storing on county land going to go back in the hole before it's reclaimed or a lake maybe?
I don't know. You know, the way the way they described it to me was, you know, it's just like when you dig a hole in your yard, you know, you try to put all the dirt back in and it doesn't fit. So they need a place to put some of that extra dirt when they're going. Even though they're taking ore out, the hole isn't going to be big enough. Yet, they're still going to have somewhat of a lake. What size or shape that is, again, is determined by, you know, whatever we decide up front in planning the reclamation process. So, I don't know how much dirt will be piled on the county land.
Can we even...
We never really got to the point where we were even talking about that. I almost snuck out of there with some maps one day, but they got those from me before I left the door.
How can we plan for a lake or a design of it when we don't know how much land we're gonna be left with, you know, vacant? I heard the figure one time, a 450-acre lake.
Right.
You know, the depth could vary, obviously, to make that on the surface, but how do we really know? You know, again, we probably need a permit, so they gotta do some drilling and see what they're gonna mine, I imagine.
We gotta get to the point where they're willing to invest the time and money to start talking about that stuff. And there's a lot of research that has to be done on the land before they can even start talking about that. But they're not gonna put those resources into it until they've got legislation that's agreeable to it. And quite frankly, I don't blame them.
Okay.
So, and that's, you know, that's just where we're at. And I have had a lot of questions like you're asking about, you know, how much dirt are they gonna pile and this and that. And that's why they wouldn't let me out the door with the maps. They almost did, and they said, no, we're not, none of this is really public information. We don't want people getting the wrong idea because it could change. And, no maps. They were nice, though. They showed the ridges and where they planned on putting dirt and that kind of stuff.
But there is a point in the process where they'll have to submit a mining plan, they'll have to submit a reclamation plan, and then we'll have a better idea.
Right.
Prior to submitting that reclamation plan, I'm sure we'll be sitting down as part of our local agreement, telling them this is what we want this area returned to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think everybody's gonna be very receptive to that. Like I said, I think if we plan stuff up front and engage some of the folks that are concerned about it and talk about what we can create when it's all said and done, I think it can go very well.
All right, thank you, Joe. That was really informative. It's good to have that formula. It's good to know exactly what's there as far as forestry and what we're working with back there, and to know that whenever I hear about that acreage, I always think the whole works is going to be impacted, so it's nice to know that it's just going to be a percentage.
Right. And again, you know, maybe at some point that we can start talking about what percentage that would be, but it's anybody's guess right now.
Well, with that, we'll move on. We're still planning that trip to Minnesota, and Mitch, I want to thank you for heading that up. I asked that everybody look at their calendars and see if there were dates that absolutely wouldn't work for them. I know I'll be out of town from April 15th and 29th. Is anybody else aware of conflict?
Make sure the snow's gone, probably be looking at May anyway, right?
April, beginning of May.
Okay.
That's the conversation I had in that area.
Yeah.
Mitch, do you think it's possible to have some firm dates by our next meeting in February?
Sure. I'll do my best.
That'd be great. I need to remind everybody that we need a list of who's going, because everybody going on mining property in Minnesota has a criminal background check. So those have to be submitted at least 2 weeks at a time.
Well, Murphy.
Never been convicted. Never convicted.
The crowd
Okay. All right, we will move on to public comment. I need to remind everybody to please let me know your name and where you live, and 3 minutes, please. And I'd appreciate it if you kept comments to items that are under the jurisdiction of this committee. With that, I'll open it up to public comment. Mr. Sherr?
Yeah, Madam President, last week, there was an overflight of the Pinocchio Range by a gentleman whose name I don't have. A local boy was on it, and there will be supposedly an article in the local paper, which I suppose is the Globe, about this. This gentleman is involved heavily in the Iron Reach hiking park over here in Ironwood. Ivan Helen, I know Ivan from Larry Peterson's history lectures. Larry did mention this last week on his radio program. And this particular fellow that was doing the flights is evidently would like to would do this with some regularity. You getting in the FCC range and all like that. But I've said from the first time I came up here, I'd love to hold a flight in this area and see what's here. And Ivan's comment to me was you couldn't imagine how many mine sites are up here. Ross would probably know that better than anybody here. But you can see them from a low-flying aircraft. So watch the Globe. Let's see if this guy does come up with an article about this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. DeCarlo?
I'll make it brief. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a meeting at Vairus Casino, and I was the only one representing this area. And it was a well-attended meeting. We had a good meeting, and a lot of things were brought up. And a guy from West Virginia was the main speaker. While I was sitting at my table, I had my hand on the table, and just before the meeting, this fellow come up to me. He says, "Can I sit with you?" I said, "Sure, come on, sit with me." So he put his stuff down, he was in a suit and tie. He said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Tom DeCarlo from Ironwood." So I got inquisitive. I said, "Who are you?" He's "I'm the mayor of Ashland. Pleased to meet you." And then I met a couple of guys that retired out of the pulp mill up there. They had cousins in Ironwood, and I knew the cousins. And I said, "How do you guys feel about this?" "Well," he says, "if the Indians accept it, we'll accept it." So that was the end of the program. And I met the chairman, and I talked to the guy from West Virginia. He came from the same kind of family I did. His grandpa worked in a mine, his father and brothers. My grandpa worked in a Germanium mine here. He was 32 years old with 12 kids, and he passed away from tuberculosis. My dad worked in a mine, the Cherry mine. He passed away with tuberculosis. Who the heck went in the mine but me for 13 years, but I survived. On January 3rd this year, I was interviewed by Channel 2 from Green Bay, and they came from Mellon. They interviewed the county board there, and they came to Ironwood. And I had my uniform on, my lamp and belt overalls, and I was in my driveway, and they were there exactly 4 o'clock. And they interviewed me for nearly an hour. And Mrs. Colasar said she's seen the video on Channel 2, and she says I've done a real good job. They give me 6 minutes on there. But I want to see if I can get that video, and maybe we can present it around here someplace. And we're all for the mine. We need jobs, but we got to get this thing over the hump. You know, like they say, when something breaks down, it's got to be fixed. And the meeting that we had in Orlando was a real good meeting. And we brought up a lot of good characteristics about mining and stuff. But coal mining is a little bit different than our ore mining or pellet mining. We have to understand this. There's a lot of things that don't happen with surface mining like we did in underground mining. The deepest mine here was Overby Norton in Montreal. It was 4,400 feet. The mine I worked on was 3,400 feet. But there's a lot of ore here yet. Montreal got millions of tons underground yet. Millions of tons in this whole area, billions of tons to be mined.